Hi and welcome to KO Distilling. My name is Peter Mowery and I'm our Virginia Sales and Marketing Director. KO Distilling was founded in 2013 by our two co-founders, Bill Carlson and John O'Mara, who are the K and O in KO. In 2015, we started producing alcohol and we are excited to be celebrating our 6th year anniversary. In celebration, I would love for you to follow me so I can give you a behind the scenes look on what we are up to here at our distillery. Follow me. Here at KO Distilling, we get all of our grain from Bay's Best Feed, which is on the northern neck of Virginia, so we try to stay as local as possible. Our farmer will bring his truck right outside, right behind our distillery. They'll pull the truck up and we'll use our auger in order to fill our two silos behind the building. From those silos, we use something called the chain disc system, which looks like a pipe with a bunch of hockey pucks strung together by chain link. And it pulls that grain directly from the silos and puts it into our mill. The beauty of that chain disc system is that it reduces any type of grain particles in the air, which actually helps us with safety and consistency. This is our mill right here. As the grain grist falls into the mill, we have two rollers, which will come together and crush the grain. And we do that in order to expose all those beautiful fermentable sugars that will be used in the process of fermentation. On the bottom of the mill, we're going to have a secondary part of that chain disc system, which will go back up and all the way around over until our mash tank. In the mash tank, we're going to have a steam injection that pushes steam in there and mixes water and grain grist in a process of mashing or cooking the grain. Once we're done with that mashing process, we're going to move into one of our 6 fermentation tanks where we will add a distiller's yeast. And the reason we use that distiller's yeast is we want the grain to speak for itself. So the distiller's yeast is a workhorse. It's going to turn that grain into some beautiful distiller's beer, but it's really going to focus on the flavors of the grain itself. Now, up until this point, we've done everything that a brewery would do. We've made a distiller's beer. However, we are a distillery, so we're going to take the next step, which is the process of distillation. So follow me and let's go talk about distillation. All right, behind me here we have the heart of our distillery, which is our still. This is a 30-foot continuous beer column still made by Vendome. In each one of these trays here, we have a sieve tray, which allows for all of the water and grain grist to fall and our alcohol to vaporize. And we'll talk about that process in just a second. But it's important to understand where we start. Behind me here, we have the beer tub. The beer tub is that cylindrical silver apparatus, and that is where we transfer the distiller's beer we were just talking about. We're going to take that beer, and we're going to pump it up to about 2/3 of the way up the still, and it's going to rain down in liquid form, and that's where that comes into the trays that I was explaining. The water and grain grist will fall as your alcohol is being vaporized by steam injection on the bottom. Alcohol, having a lower boiling point, is going to rise in vapor form and allow all of the grain grist and water to leave the still on the bottom. As the vapor rises, it has to get higher and higher in alcohol content in order for it to actually escape. It goes higher and higher up the still, and then it goes across our vapor line. The vapor line will fall over to our first condenser, which will pull that back down in temperature and make it a liquid. That is going to fall into our sight glass. The one on the left here is a low wine, sitting at about 118 proof, and it is the first distillation. We still need to go through a secondary distillation, so we're going to take that low wine, and it's going to flow down into our doubler. The doubler is a secondary little still, which does the exact same process, and it is helping us to increase the proof and to finish that product. So our doubler will go ahead and through that second distillation. It will rise in vapor form over to our secondary condenser and drop into our secondary sight glass, and that is the high wine. So the proof coming off of our final distillation is about 132 proof. That high wine will fall down into our spirit safe, which is a smaller cylindrical silver container here, and that is where our final product rests until we're ready to move it. I think it's a beautiful illustration, though, the beer tub versus the spirit safe. It really goes to show you how a 16-ounce beer might have a similar alcohol content to an 1.5 ounces of whiskey. And the last thing that I wanted to mention here is as you look up, you can see that we have actually cut a hole in our ceiling, crane lifted our still in, and built a doghouse on top of our building. And I think if that's not a show of our commitment to quality, I don't know what is. I think our founders have consistently taken the high road on getting the best equipment and the best people, and it would have been much easier to just pick a still that fit within the building that we already had. But I think it's a great illustration of the amount of time and energy and meticulous work that goes into making the best whiskey we can. So, now I will mention that this is our second still. We installed this in 2017, and it has allowed us to actually produce upwards of 1,053 gallon barrels in a year's time. Before we had this still, we actually had a smaller pot still, and I want to share that with you now. So follow me this direction. Let's go talk about that original still. Behind me here we have our original still. This is a 550 gallon Vendome hybrid pot and column still, and we utilized this still from 2015 to 2017 until we expanded into the column still that we just got to see. We still do use this still for all of our gins, and the reason we use that for the gins is because we can put the botanicals right on in and do that distillation. The principle of this still is the exact same as what we saw before. Your alcohol or your distiller's beer, if you're doing a whiskey, would start in the pot. It's going to rise in vapor form through the column. It's going to go through a series of sieve trays, and it's going to go all the way through the vapor line, hit our condenser, and then go into our sight glass. You'll notice we don't have a spirit safe, and the reason for that is we have to move the spirit safe in, collect the distillate, and then pull it back out, do it multiple times. All of our whiskey is double distilled. So this is, I kind of equate it to a scalpel, very precision oriented, but a lot of time and energy in small batches. When we were operating a still, we were able to produce about 225 or 250 53 gallon barrels at a time. However, with the column still, we are now able to produce upwards of 1,000 barrels per year, and that would be a per year metric. So you can understand why in 2017 we went ahead and moved to that new still. Now we do continue to keep all of our gins on this beautiful still behind me. The reason being is it has a much larger opening that you can put those botanicals straight on in, and the botanicals then flavor our gin through that second distillation. In that process, it's the exact same that you would go through with a whiskey. Your botanicals and alcohol would go into the pot. It would rise through the column, but we also have a gin basket, which is right next to the column. That is where we would use our bitter orange peel. And why we use that gin basket is to maintain a vapor contact, not a liquid contact, which pulls all those beautiful citrus flavors without really any of the bitterness that you would find if it was in liquid contact. As the vapor goes across the vapor line, again, it hits that condenser, sight glass, and then it will be collected in a spirit safe as well. Now, even after throughout this process here, we're not quite done yet. We still need to actually put that into a barrel. That's where the longest part of the process is, the aging. So I want to share with you our barrel room. We actually age right here on site. And follow me. Let's go check it out. Welcome to our KO Distilling barrel room. First thing that you'll notice in this room is the beautiful scent of oak and whiskey. It's a wonderful, wonderful scent here, especially in the summertime. The reason for that is the distillate that is sitting in each one of these barrels is actually expanding and contracting. It is pushing into the oak and then pulling back from the oak all those beautiful notes of caramels and vanillas and oakiness and butterscotch, baking spices, etc. And really a lot of that has to do with the fact that the temperature in here is hot in the summertime and cold in the wintertime. We live in a very great climate for whiskey because you need that in order to produce a really quality spirit. Now, every one of these barrels behind me is going to be 53 gallons in its capacity. We've made a conscious decision to take the time to do things right. A lot of the younger distilleries will use smaller barrels to kind of accelerate the aging, which is okay, but we feel like the best whiskey is going to be produced by taking the traditional route in a 53 gallon barrel. Each of these are new charred white oak American barrels, and we use a char level 3. And what that means is as the whiskey sits in there, you're going to get interaction with not only the oak, but also the char. And that's where you're going to develop some of the beautiful color. And the interaction within that barrel is such a beautiful thing to watch and to monitor over time. If you look at the barrel heads, you can actually tell what is in each of these barrels by the barrel number, the lot number, and by the sticker. So all of our various whiskeys are available, and what you see behind you is actually the oldest whiskey that we have being ready to be bottled first. whereas we actually have a secondary rickhouse. Between the two rickhouses, we have about 3,000 barrels. The other rickhouse is about 5 miles away from here. And what that does is it shares that beautiful temperate climate. But here we have moved all of the barrels that are going to be harvested first, whereas our new make goes to our other rickhouse, where it will sit for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years, depending on the product. After we go through this entire process of barreling, we also need to bottle. And so we're not quite done with the process yet. If you'll follow me, we're going to go to the bottling room next, and I'm going to show you how we actually bottle our product. Follow me. I'm here in our KO Distilling bottling room, and this is where the final step in the process occurs, our bottling and labeling. Before we get to the step behind me here, we're going to sparge the bottles, which is rinsing them out with a little bit of the spirit we're going to fill them with. We do this so that we don't proof that spirit down in the process of sparging. We're then going to use a whiskey cow, which fills 6 bottles up at the same time using a gravity-fed system. On 6 udders. We're going to cap those bottles, and we're going to run them down the line. Behind me here is a CDA labeler, where we have our distiller Ryan Hendricks and our assistant distiller Colin Rapone, who have just finished our bottling run of a single barrel iteration. We'll then put that on the table and get that ready to have a tax tape and a single barrel sticker added to it. We will put that into a box, and then we will send that to your local liquor store so you and your family can enjoy. You can enjoy at your favorite bar and restaurant, but no matter how you enjoy KO Distilling, make sure to drink KO responsibly.